Love it or hate it, CGI is a vital part of making pretty much every movie these days. And while we notice it when it's bad, looking at you, Thor, Love and Thunder, sometimes CGI is so good that it might as well be invisible, and it takes a behind-the-scenes breakdown or a behind-the-scenes picture for us to realise that something we thought was actually real in the frame was totally made up on a computer. And that's the kind of wizardry we're celebrating today. So, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 recent CGI movie moments you didn't notice. Number 10. Spider's lower body, Avatar: The Way of Water. Avatar: The Way of Water is nothing if not a mesmerising visual effects showcase. And while most of the effects obviously draw stunning attention to themselves, there is way more going on than even you probably realised. And in a recent episode of Corridor Cruiser VFX Artists React, they actually broke down Avatar 2 CGI with the film's VFX supervisor Eric Sadon. And Sadon revealed that there is one expertly tricky piece of visual effects wizardry going on towards the end of the movie. Specifically, it's when Spider saves his father Quaritch from drowning and drags him ashore. Now, audiences are obviously aware that Quaritch appears in the scene through performance capture, and may suspect that the rocks and water are digital creations, but probably didn't guess that Spider himself was also partially digital. Now, the real shot was achieved by having Spider's actor stand against a rock near a green screen, but because of just how much the actor's body got in the way of both the digital water and the digital Quaritch, things had to be changed in post-production. As such, the decision was made to replace the entire lower half of his body, as the intent was to ensure that Spider's feet and legs reacted properly to the CGI water, and that's something that an on-set actor that isn't himself immersed in water is simply incapable of doing. Number 9. Black Bolt's entire suit. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Marvel Studios in recent years might have proven that they have a bit of a VFX problem, but on the other hand, they have also proven that they're pretty damn good at one thing, and that's creating entire CGI suits. I mean, bear in mind that those time travel suits from Avengers Endgame were all entirely digital, and pretty much nobody knew that until Marvel came out and admitted it themselves. And in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, they pulled this off again. Though audiences might have guessed that the iconic Illuminati sequence was basically stitched together from separate takes due to the ensemble cast's differing schedules, who among us noticed that Black Bolt's costume was entirely CGI? Well, behind-the-scenes images have shown actor Anson Mount wearing a motion capture leotard while shooting the scene. And that's because there was no practical suit for Black Bolt at all. Like I said, this was all computer effects. They didn't have a physical costume made for the actor, probably because this movie was made with such an insane turnaround. Number 8. The Elephant Babylon. Given that Damien Chazelle's Babylon is a glitzy send-up / indictment of golden era Hollywood, it makes sense that little VFX was used on the movie in order to capture the spirit of the films of the time. But you might have missed that perhaps its most comprehensive and challenging CGI moment actually occurs in the opening minutes of the movie, yet you'd scarcely know it. Now, Babylon opens with protagonist Manny attempting to transport an elephant to an almost impossibly decadent party being held in a mansion in the hills of Los Angeles. And while you probably knew in your bones that they wouldn't have used a real elephant in this scene, what with so many productions not using animals at all in the modern age, it kinda looks so photoreal at times that you would be fooled into thinking that yeah, they just got an elephant on set for that day. But as Chazelle put it himself in an interview with Polygon, quote, "We couldn't shoot with an elephant. We did things to this elephant on screen that should never be done to any elephant," end quote, and as such the entire thing, again, was CGI. Number 7. All Black the Necrosword. Now, I've already tooled on Thor, Love and Thunder's CGI in the introduction of this video, but it should be mentioned that Marvel Studios' CGI work isn't terrible, it's just massively inconsistent. And I should point out, by the way, this is absolutely not the fault of the VFX artists themselves. It's just, according to reports anyway, allegedly just the way that Marvel Studios works on such a tight turnaround that it leads to really demanding schedules and, as such, really inconsistent CGI. But one excellent use of CGI in Thor Love and Thunder that you probably didn't even realise was CGI, hence the title of this list, comes with Gore the God Butcher's sword, that being all black, the Necrosword that he receives right at the very start of the movie and uses it throughout the rest of the flick to start killing all the gods that the character can find. The film's VFX breakdown confirms that in many scenes, Christian Bale simply pretended to hold the sword, and it was then composited into his hands in post-production. So yeah, with that in mind, it's probably no surprise why Bale himself called the CGI scenes that he had to shoot monotonous. Just let the dude swing around a fake sword, man. It's one of life's greatest pleasures. Number 6, The Cave, 13 Lives. 13 Lives is a damn solid dramatization of the real-life Tamluang cave rescue by director Ron Howard. And while you might have assumed that the film was shot entirely practically on a soundstage with the cast members swimming inside water tanks, VFX actually played a huge role in the end result. And this was in part due to pandemic restrictions that meant that Ron Howard had to shoot most of the movie in Australia rather than on location in Thailand. As such, many exterior shots of the cave had to be created digitally, yet the result is basically impossible to spot. But most impressively of all, though the actors did indeed swim in tanks for the rescue sequences, lots of shots were completely CGI creations, combining digital geometry of the caves with VFX doubles of the actors themselves. It looks so photoreal at times though, you would never have guessed that the real actors weren't actually there on film. Number 5, Dr. Fate's suit and helmet, Black Adam. Proving that the MCU isn't the only game in town when it comes to creating convincing CGI costumes, Dr. Fate in Black Adam similarly was constructed almost entirely out of CGI, apart from, of course, actor Pierce Brosnan. As Brosnan has since confirmed himself, pretty much none of the suit was actually created practically, and he wore a mocap leotard for almost all of the shoot. And in addition to the suit itself, Dr. Fate's helmet was also CGI in many shots. Due to the complexity of photographing a highly reflective object in an environment that's going to be severely altered in post-production, it often made more sense for the filmmakers to film the helmet as a simply digital object. As such, the only shots where the helmet is actually there are those where Brosnan is actually holding it and when there's not too much CGI going on in the background. Number 4, a ton of landscape shots, The Pale Blue Eye. As you probably guessed from this list, often the most impressive visual shots are the ones you'd never notice in a million years. Filmmakers like Martin Scorsese and David Fincher regularly use CGI to add depth and detail to their wide shot footage, in turn making it look considerably more epic, and Scott Cooper did a similarly great job with this in his environments on the recent Netflix thriller The Pale Blue Eye. Now, the majority of this film takes place in West Point's United States Military Academy. And while you probably assume that the production similarly filmed the movie at a similar looking American university, that's not entirely true. While the film was partially shot at Westminster College, the exteriors of the United States Military Academy were actually digitally created, with partial elements like soldiers and a horse-drawn carriage being filmed and transplanted into a VFX rendition of the Academy. The entire movie is filled with absolutely gorgeous landscape shots, most of which you probably didn't realize were just CGI. Number 3, the Talakanil breathing masks, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Now, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever is once again another movie jam-packed with visual effects shots, and most of them you can pretty much tell. But as we've come to expect on this list so far, there's an equal amount of sneaky CGI in there that we didn't notice. And perhaps the least noticeable effect in the entire movie is actually one of the simplest to execute. Now, you'll surely recall that the Talakanil wear respirator-like masks which allow them to breathe outside of the water, and while this might seem like an incredibly straightforward piece of practical costuming, it didn't actually exist on set. Indeed, the film's VFX breakdown reveals that the performers simply wore the outline of the mask on their faces, and the sealed blue covering was actually just added in later. It kind of makes you wonder what actually is filmed on film sets these days, doesn't it? Number 2, The Final Kiss, You People. Netflix's recent rom-com You People focuses on interracial couple Ezra and Amira and their clashing family cultures. It all ends happily, of course, with the two tying the knot, a bond that's sealed with a kiss while the family celebrate. Yet, believe it or not, that slow motion shot of the two locking lips was actually a sneaky bit of digital trickery. As revealed by actor Andrew Schultz, who plays a supporting role in the film, it was confirmed on a recent episode of the podcast The Brilliant Idiots that the two actors never actually kissed while shooting the scene. Instead, the pair paused before they touched lips, and the rest of the work was just achieved in post. And indeed, if you watch the shot carefully, there is a split second where the actors' faces morph ever so slightly, with the VFX department quite cleverly covering the foreground in falling confetti to better conceal the effect. Now, this doesn't sound like a case of the actors refusing to do this and hating each other on set, but rather it's assumed that it was more a COVID restriction when the movie was filmed. Number 1, the concert audiences. I want to dance with somebody. Shooting convincing concert sequences for movies is always an incredibly tough challenge, but trying to achieve that same effect during a global pandemic, yeah, that was pretty tough. And while it is simply a logistical reality that musical biopics use VFX to create their giant concert crowds, the recent Whitney Houston biopic, I Want to Dance with Somebody, took this to quite unprecedented levels. See, while the Queen movie Bohemian Rhapsody was able to corral 2,000 extras for its concert scenes, the nature of this movie's pandemic shoot meant that the director only had access to between 150 and 300 extras, depending on the day. Not exactly a stadium-sized crowd, is it? As a result, though, these extras were each shot in 10 different sets of clothes and giving 10 different performances, which were then interspersed throughout the crowd to make up the expected volume. Furthermore, 100% CGI crowd members were also used to further fill the stadiums out, and wider still, the arenas themselves were also completely digital for the most part, recreated using their actual building blueprints rather than filming in any actual stadiums. I know, that really surprised me too. I thought at least the stadium might be real. Or at least the stage. I don't know. So, that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. How many of these CGI moments did you catch while you were watching these flicks? And are there any other sneaky ones that really surprised you that deserve to be on here? Let me know. And while you're down there in the comments, if you could, please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.